Scout warns that VW dealers fighting direct sales, that it's not playing around. So this is something that's going to be an interesting development. This is for VW dealers, where VW is basically going around their dealers and going to be able to sell these vehicles direct to consumer because they're not acting under VW, they're acting under the brand Scout. And this is why you can have some manufacturers that are able to sell direct to consumer and some that are not able to do it, because if the brand doesn't have a dealership base already set up in the US, then the laws do not protect the dealerships that don't exist, right? So Scout, while it's owned by a parent company that owns VW, it's not technically the same brand as VW. So this is why they're able to do it. This is why you're able to see a brand like Tesla, because they have no dealer network. That way, a brand like Polestar, because they have no dealer network, they're able to go direct to consumer. And this is what dealers do not want. And we're going to have, I think, more and more brands that find ways around this, because they want to soak up all of that front end and back end goodness that a lot of these dealers get to soak up. And if manufacturers can do that, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for consumer. In my opinion, I think it's probably a good thing for consumers, but I think, Ray, you have a different opinion on this.
Well, I think the California Automobile Dealers Association, which is the one that's starting the fight with Scout, and Scout saying, oh no, VW has absolutely nothing to do with us, and no, you're wrong. And I think ultimately what happens is that lawyers for both sides are going to take in a metric poop ton of fees, because there are going to be legal fights over this that God knows how long it could last. I don't think, and I'm not a lawyer, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I can't say that my opinion makes any sense. But I don't think it's going to be all that hard to find that connection from VW to Scout. I just don't think it's going to be all that hard, and I don't think it'll be all that hard to find that financial connection that perhaps VW is underwriting Scout to a certain degree. I think that connection is going to be relatively easy to discover, and so it'll just be interesting as to how it all plays out in the courts, because if that connection can be made, then I think the fact that Scout says, well, there's no legacy dealer group for Scout, and VW dealers are going to say, but it's VW's money that's underwriting it, and they're trying to cut us out. It'll just be interesting to see how it all plays out, because there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. Okay, there's going to be two winners and there's going to be one loser. And the two winners will be whatever side the court rules for, and the other winner will be the lawyers from both sides. And so it's at this point, I should probably suggest to Zach that he go to law school and specialize in corporate law.
So I feel like whatever the outcome, let's say that VW does win this and they're able to go direct to consumer with Scout. Why would these manufacturers think of Ford? Like Ford had a lot of talk around going to direct to consumer about a year and a half ago, I believe.
Yes.
And that went nowhere, obviously, because they can't do anything. But if VW is allowed to do something like this with a brand like Scout, what's going to be stopping Ford with coming up with a whole different brand that Ford owns, that they're able to go direct to consumer. I think a lot of manufacturers will use this loophole if VW finds one to be able to do this. And I think there's a lot of manufacturers out there that want to do this, and they are very frustrated with their dealers, and probably have been very frustrated with their dealers at least over the last 3 to 4 years. It's been all over the news. Ford is the example that I keep coming back to, where Ford had lots and lots of complaints about their dealers price gouging. And really, what happened from that is that Ford, after the dealers were able to price gouge, they just bumped up those MSRPs, and now Ford was able to price gouge. So they don't want to get cut out of all this money that these dealers are making. I think a lot of these manufacturers would love to see VW win this.
I tend to disagree.
Really?
And,
Okay.
and the reason I disagree is I think some of these manufacturers have attempted in the past to create their own network. Ford had a network around Oklahoma City where they owned all the Ford dealerships. And so essentially, when you were buying a Ford, you were buying it directly from Ford Motor Company, because it was Ford Motor Company's dealerships, factory owned. I believe that project lasted a year and a half, 2 years, maybe 3 max, before Ford got out of the business. They realized that they were good at manufacturing and distributing, but they wholesaling, but they had no concept of retailing. It's a whole different world. And it's a whole different set of infrastructure. So that, are there upstarts that are utilizing direct to customer? Yes. But ultimately, do every one of these manufacturers want to be in the direct to consumer business? I don't think so. I think they would like to find some type of hybrid, an agency type business where prices are set. The dealerships still handle the delivery of the vehicles. The dealerships still handle the demoing of vehicles when people are interested. And then the manufacturer pays the dealership a delivery fee for having helped the consumer at the end. But I don't think the vast majority of the manufacturers want to be in the retail business because A, they don't understand it, and B, when they've tried it, they haven't been successful at it. So,
But don't you feel like, since there's a model out there now that is successful, and as far as share price and cap value has shown that it can be very, very, very successful, don't you think a lot of these manufacturers are looking at that and be like, you know what, even though we weren't able to do it in the past, we see that now it can actually work? And I mean, obviously, the brand I'm talking about is Tesla. Do you
no, I
think
know.
that Tesla has changed the game enough to make these manufacturers want to do that?
Yeah, but how much of what Tesla makes is the sale of their carbon credits and things like that to other manufacturers? So just the manufacture and sale of vehicles, I don't know how much of that is contributes to the profits of Tesla as much as selling of carbon credits to other automobile and truck manufacturers out there. Um, so I don't know the answer. I just because Tesla's been successful or appears to be successful at it, doesn't mean that Ford can be, or the General Motors can be, or the Dodge can be. I these manufacturers have made so damn much money in their histories producing and wholesaling cars to their dealers and not having to own the real estate that a dealership sits on, or the facility or the building. that I just think that they're pretty damn content being manufacturers and having dealers, franchise dealers, handle the rest. I'm telling you, I think there's a hybrid form that we don't know about yet that will come about in the future. But dealerships, I believe, will always be there. You know, can there be a Tesla? Can there be a Rivian? Can there be a Lucid? Yeah. Um, is Rivian making money? No. Is Lucid making money? No. Is Polestar making money? No. Um, Tesla's making money? Yes. Um, but that doesn't mean anybody else can or would.
All right, so all of you watching it here, I know most of you are not subscribed, so I need you to hit that subscribe button. Whatever we need to do to get you to hit that subscribe button, Ray will do it. So just hit it for us and let us know what he needs to do down in the comments to get you to subscribe. So I want to pull this up because over the last couple years, I've seen tons and tons of comments just like this one saying, well, if you can't keep dealers from price gouging, then threaten to yank their franchise.
You can't.
They're not going to do this. When they can. There are laws that are protecting all these dealers in the states to allow them to do whatever the hell that they want to do, right? But even on top of that, the manufacturers wouldn't do this because those are the manufacturer's customers. So it'd be like me going out onto my used car lot and having a customer just walking around. If they want to negotiate on something, say, oh, no, you know what? I don't like that. Just get out of here. You can't do that. You have to treat your customers in a way that they still want to buy your product. They still want to give you money for things. And it's kind of, in a way, both manufacturer and dealer are trapped because the only way that the dealers can get inventory is by doing what the manufacturer wants. And the only way that manufacturers can sell their product is by having the dealers take the product. So it's kind of a interesting situation where you have a monopoly on both sides from these manufacturers and these dealers, where the only people that manufacturers can sell their product to are the dealers. So they want the dealers to be happy. And the only way that dealers can get their product is from the manufacturers. So they want the manufacturers to send them as much product as they want. So they want the manufacturer to be happy with them. So it's it's a whole messed up system. And you don't see this really anywhere else in business. It's just an odd way of how the system works between manufacturer and dealer, at least in the United States.
Well, and here's the thing. Every new car has a Monroney label, a window sticker on it with a manufacturer's suggested retail price. That's merely a suggestion. When there is a glut of vehicles, people pay much less than the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And nobody complains when they get $10 or $15 or $20,000 off on a vehicle because there were too many of them. Well, conversely, when there is a shortage in the market and people have this fear of missing out, they become willing to pay more for the product than what the suggested price was. Market conditions determine ultimately what the price will be. And if we live in a capitalistic society, and to a certain degree we do, the market's going to make that determination. So when there's a shortage and people still want to buy it and they're willing to pay more than what the suggested price was, there's nothing you can do as the manufacturer to stop that, because the market dictates what the price is. When there's a glut and the dealer has to sell it for $15,000 less, there's nothing the manufacturer can do about that, because it was just a suggested selling price and market conditions dictate that it has to be sold at this lower price. So if you said to me, Ray, Should dealers refrain from market adjustments when there are shortages of vehicles? I would tell you, yes, they should refrain, because they are sacrificing long-term profits for short-term gains, because people will remember, their customers will remember that they paid way too much for something. And so when it's time to replace it, they ain't going back to that dealership to do it because they felt like they got taken advantage of. So, yeah, I think dealers should refrain from market adjustments like that. But I understand why they do it. They're, if people are willing to pay it, as a retailer, you kind of sort of have to say to yourself, well, then I probably should sell it at that price as opposed to the lower one.
And this is what pissed off Ford so much with their dealers over the last couple of
Yeah,
years, and why dealers and Ford had such a like a scarred type of relationship.
yeah,
It's because Ford knew exactly what these dealers were doing, and they were causing, okay, these dealers were making the money right now,
yes,
but next time around, Ford is actually going to lose consumers because these Ford dealers were adding on these market adjustments, and it was hurting the name of the brand. But at the end of the day, Ford couldn't do anything about it, and this is why you had all of this talk from Ford. Ford probably knew they couldn't do anything about it, but they were
of
trying
course.
to do everything in their power with press releases, with Jim Farley going across the nation to talk to dealers, with Jim Farley saying that we want to go direct to consumer. They probably knew they couldn't do any of these things, but they were trying to do as much as they actually could do with their words to get Ford dealers to stop price gouging, added market adjustments, because Ford knows that 5-7 years from now, that's going to hurt Ford's brand, because
Yes.
those consumers that got charged $10,000 markup on this Bronco that now a lot of these Ford dealers can't sell. So the price, I talked about this in a video just a couple of days ago, the actual value of what that Bronco is worth right now could be about 50% less than what they paid for it just a year ago. When you have that much equity that's just set on fire in 12 months time, a consumer that is experiencing that right now, and there's a lot of them. Ford's not the only one. You're seeing that with Dodge, Ram, all these Stellantis products that are going to just get cut in half as far as the equity goes just in 12 months time. Those consumers are not going to go back to Jeep, Dodge, Ram. They're not going to go back to Ford to buy their next vehicle, because they can see how much money they can lose in just a short amount of time. This is what Ford was trying to avoid, but at the end of the day, they couldn't do anything about it.
No, which is why they came out with, they would send out press releases about the memos that they sent to their dealers, suggesting that it was in their best interest not to do it. But they couldn't force their dealers not to do it. It is always a manufacturer's suggested retail selling price. It is not the manufacturer selling price. Two different things. One's a suggestion, and one's the actual price that it can be sold for. And until that changes, and one of the ways that it could change, and one of the ways that I've called for it to change, is every new car dealer has to send in a financial statement to their brand every month that shows how many cars they sold, what they sold each car for, what the profit was per car sold, what service sales were, what parts sales, everything about the dealership. And the point of this is that the manufacturer could then look and they could go, oh, well, the Ram 1500 has an average transaction price of $47,000, even though it has an MSRP of $55,000. So if you know that about every model that is being sold, and you know what the average transaction price is of each model that is being sold, then make the price of the vehicle what the average transaction price is. And instead of it being a manufacturer's suggested retail selling price, that becomes the manufacturer's selling price based on what the market has been. And there's no negotiation. And it's done because it's already been discounted down to what it is that they, on a monthly basis, they have actually sell for. That's what I would like to see happen, because every manufacturer has this information available to them. And but that won't happen either.
No, because then who's gonna pay for that nice big sign that's out there in front of the dealership?
And there can be regional differences, and so yeah, it's not going. But that would be one way, where you could come up with what the national averages are, and then that's what you price the vehicle at. That's what it's priced at from the manufacturer, and that's what the dealer has to sell it for.
But don't you think even if they would do that, then your amount of add-ons that were mandatory from the dealer would just go through the absolute roof? Because if they can make
Right.
$1, they're going to add it on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You've heard me say it. The dealerships are filled with some of the most creative thinking people on the face of the planet. They'll figure out stuff people don't need that they do need, or they'll tell them they need, and they'll tell them they have to buy. But maybe there'll be a higher percentage of dealers out there that won't look to do that and just be happy with making whatever that average transaction price profit would amount to. Perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not going to happen.
No. It will
Which I wish something like that would happen for all consumers out there, but I can tell you my dealership sells a lot more vehicles because the system is the way that it is.